Stories by Anna Born to Rule, episodes 311 to 315 review. Elaine thought she was finally free, but her mouth nearly cost her everything. What happens when the door to freedom finally opens, but you cannot resist turning around for one last insult? And what happens when the very people you humiliate know you only have a few minutes left within their reach? Episodes 311 through 315 of Born to Rule take us through one of the most chaotic stretches of Elaine's detention ordeal. But while Elaine's suffering dominates much of these episodes, something much quieter, and potentially much more important, is happening outside those prison walls. Warnia Smith is falling harder for Charlie Wade, and this time, someone else notices. Before we get into everything that happened, welcome back to Stories by Anna, Faith, Hope, and Life Lessons. If you are new here, welcome. And to everyone who continues returning for these Born to Rule reviews, thank you so much for being part of this community. Please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Now, let's talk about episodes 311 through 315. Episode 311, Locked in Anguish. Episode 311 gives us a fascinating contrast between two women whose lives are connected to Charlie in completely different ways. On one side, we have Warnia Smith. On the other, we have Elaine. Warnia steps out of the elevator carrying flowers for Darius, but the moment she sees Charlie, practically everything else disappears from her attention. The story makes something very clear here. Warnia is not simply grateful to Charlie. She is emotionally attached to him. This woman comes from a powerful family. She has been trained to carry herself with dignity, restraint, and composure. She understands appearances. She understands status. She knows how wealthy families operate. But Charlie seems to dismantle all of those defenses. Around him, she becomes almost shy. And Darius notices. That is important. Warnia explains to Darius that Charlie was the mysterious spiritual consultant who once helped her during one of the darkest periods of her life. Her business had been experiencing serious trouble. She was dealing with accidents. Her personal life had become chaotic. Even the necklace left to her by her mother had disappeared. Charlie helped restore order. So when Warnia calls him her savior, she is not exaggerating how she feels. And Darius immediately begins looking at Charlie differently. This is another recurring pattern in Born to Rule. Charlie rarely introduces himself by listing his accomplishments. Other people do it for him. Someone meets Charlie and thinks he is ordinary. Then another respected person says, "You don't understand who you're dealing with." And suddenly Charlie's standing changes. Darius had already respected Charlie for helping him, but discovering that Warnia Smith herself holds Charlie in such high regard elevates that respect even further. Then Darius notices something else. Warnia wants to drive Charlie home. She does not particularly care about staying behind to catch up with Darius, and Darius is intelligent enough to understand exactly what is happening. Warnia likes Charlie, so he politely removes himself from the situation and gives her the opportunity she clearly wants. During the drive, Warnia finally gathers enough courage to ask Charlie when he might be free for dinner. That is a very small moment on the surface, but within the larger story, it matters. Warnia is slowly moving beyond admiration. She wants time with Charlie, not because she needs his help, not because there is a business emergency, not because her grandfather sent her. She simply wants to be with him. And Charlie agrees that perhaps they can have dinner in a couple of days. But Charlie's attention is already somewhere else. He is waiting for a telephone call, because Elaine's punishment is almost finished, and Charlie wants to see the result. Episode 312, Caught Between Fear and Fury. Back inside the detention center, Elaine is living through a nightmare. And there is an important psychological shift happening here. Before all of this, Elaine was loud, greedy, impulsive, and extremely confident whenever she believed she had the advantage. But detention has stripped almost everything away from her. Comfort, food, sleep, control, dignity, even physical security. She has spent 2 days being humiliated and attacked, and now she does not know whether she is about to be released or sentenced to years behind bars. Meanwhile, Mrs. Wilson is enjoying every second of Elaine's suffering. That relationship has gone far beyond ordinary family resentment. Mrs. Wilson believes Elaine may receive a sentence of 10, 15, or even 20 years. And instead of feeling concern for the wife of her own son, she practically celebrates. Why? Because she believes Elaine's imprisonment solves several problems. Elaine disappears, Mrs. Wilson gets revenge, and most importantly, Mrs. Wilson believes Elaine's written letter will eventually allow her to move into Thompson first-grade estates. That villa has become almost symbolic for Mrs. Wilson. It represents everything she believes she has lost: status, wealth, comfort, and social importance. So while Elaine is dreaming about freedom, Mrs. Wilson is dreaming about occupying Elaine's home. Then Bridget joins the abuse, and Elaine is attacked again. But something even worse is waiting outside. During yard time, 3 intimidating women stop Elaine. One of them produces an Obsidian bank card, and Elaine instantly recognizes it. The card. Charlie's card. The object that started this entire disaster. Elaine immediately assumes these women belong to the criminal organization connected to the money. And that is exactly what Charlie and Isaac wanted her to believe. This is where Charlie's strategy becomes extremely calculated. He did not simply want Elaine released, he wanted her frightened before she was released. Because Charlie understands something about Elaine. A warning would not work, a conversation would not work, embarrassment would not work. Elaine had already demonstrated that her greed could override ordinary common sense. So Isaac arranges for these 3 women to make Elaine believe that stealing the card has placed her in danger far beyond the detention center. They tell her something terrifying. Her problems are only beginning, and Elaine believes them. For perhaps the first time, she begins to understand that she may have touched something far more dangerous than she ever imagined. Episode 313. The Shocking Release. This is where the story delivers one of its funniest reversals. Mrs. Wilson is practically planning Elaine's prison future. Wendy is talking about Elaine spending decades behind bars. The women in the cell believe Elaine is finished. Then the guard appears and says, "Elaine, you've been released." Everything changes instantly. The woman who moments earlier looked half dead suddenly comes alive. And this is where we learn something extremely important about Elaine. Pain did not cure her arrogance. The moment she realizes she is leaving, the old Elaine comes roaring back. Instead of quietly collecting her belongings and getting out while she still can, Elaine starts insulting everybody. Mrs. Wilson, Wendy, Bridget, anyone who touched her. She tells Mrs. Wilson she will never live in Thompson. She mocks the Wilson family's poverty. She threatens Bridget. And then Elaine says probably the single worst thing she could have said. She threatens to find Bridget's mother's grave, dig it up, and scatter her ashes. That is the moment Elaine crosses a completely different line. Because Bridget may be a violent woman, but Elaine has now attacked something deeply personal, her deceased mother. And what makes this scene even more frustrating is that Elaine had already won. She was leaving. The door was open. She had survived. She could have walked away, but Elaine needed the final word. Sometimes the greatest danger comes after you have already escaped the original danger because pride convinces you to turn around. And Elaine turns around. Again. And again. And again. Until Bridget decides, if Elaine is leaving anyway, this may be their last opportunity. Elaine walks into the bathroom. Bridget follows. Mrs. Wilson follows. Wendy follows. And suddenly, Elaine's triumphant exit becomes another nightmare. Episode 314. A Desperate Choice. This episode gives us one of the clearest examples yet of Elaine creating an additional disaster through her own mouth. The inmates swarm her inside the bathroom. Then Wendy sees an opportunity. She grabs Elaine's leg. Mrs. Wilson understands immediately. And together they decide to injure her before she leaves. Mrs. Wilson stomps down. Crack. Elaine's leg is broken at the knee. Think about that. Elaine was already being released. If she had packed her belongings, kept quiet, and walked through the door, she probably would have left on 2 functioning legs. Instead, she is now leaving detention battered, missing teeth, bruised, partially bald from having hair pulled out, and with a broken leg. But even after this, the inmates protect one another. When the guard arrives, Bridget immediately changes the story. According to them, Elaine tried to kick Mrs. Wilson, slipped, and injured herself. More than 20 prisoners are prepared to support the same version of events, and Elaine suddenly faces another choice. She can demand an investigation, or she can leave. The guard essentially tells her, if you insist on pursuing this, there will be statements, questioning, and delays. And worse, everyone else may tell exactly the same lie. Elaine thinks about it, and for once, she makes the sensible choice. Get me out of here. Nothing matters more to her anymore than escaping that detention center. But remarkably, even while limping away, Elaine still turns around and threatens Bridget again. That is Elaine in one scene. Broken leg, bruised face, missing teeth, barely able to walk, and somehow still talking. Episode 315, Detention's Aftermath. Elaine finally reaches the administrative section of the detention center, and even the police officers are stunned by what they see. The woman who entered detention looks almost nothing like the woman leaving it. Her face is swollen, her nose is bruised, her teeth are missing, her hair has been ripped out, her body is covered in injuries, and her leg is clearly broken. Yet the officers make something else very clear. She is free. But she must follow their instructions. Elaine is told to call Charlie, and this is where the irony becomes almost perfect. The person Elaine secretly blames for everything is the person she now has to call to rescue her. Elaine still believes Charlie's bank card was ultimately responsible for her nightmare. She does not understand that Charlie knows far more about everything that happened than she realizes. Meanwhile, Charlie is sitting at home waiting for exactly this call. That difference in knowledge is what makes the scene so interesting. Elaine believes events are happening to Charlie. The audience knows Charlie has been quietly influencing events around Elaine. When she finally calls him, Charlie plays his role perfectly. "Mom, where have you been? We've been looking everywhere for you." Elaine can barely contain her anger. Then she learns something else. Jacob is at a party. Now that might have hurt Elaine almost as badly as another slap. She has spent 2 days experiencing what she believes is the worst ordeal of her life, and Jacob apparently has not even been sitting home worrying himself sick. Elaine immediately files that information away for later, but first she needs Charlie. She tells him her leg is broken. Charlie contacts Claire. Claire is horrified and heads toward the hospital. Then Charlie arrives at the detention center and finally sees Elaine. The transformation is shocking. Elaine entered as the same domineering woman who had been ordering people around for years. She leaves looking completely defeated. But notice something important. Her personality is not completely defeated. When Charlie asks what happened, her first instinct is still, "That's none of your business." Then the police officer reminds her of the situation, and suddenly, "Oh, Charlie, my dear son-in-law." That change happens fast. Because Elaine has learned at least one lesson. She is afraid now. Maybe not humble, maybe not grateful, maybe not transformed, but afraid. And fear is enough for the moment to make her control herself. Charlie signs the release paperwork, helps Elaine outside, and takes her toward the hospital. Then Elaine sees their transportation, a battered old taxi. After everything she has endured, she apparently expected a luxury vehicle. And even in her condition, broken leg, missing teeth, swollen face, the old Elaine begins bubbling underneath the surface again. That tells us everything. What these 5 episodes are really telling us, there are 3 major character revelations hidden inside episodes 311 to 315. First, Warnia's feelings for Charlie are becoming visible to other people. Darius sees it immediately. Warnia is no longer simply someone Charlie once helped. Emotionally, she has become invested in him. And because Charlie continues accumulating influential people who respect and trust him, Warnia's position in his life may eventually become much more complicated. Second, Charlie is becoming increasingly comfortable exercising power from behind the scenes. Elaine has absolutely no idea how much control Charlie had over what happened. She believes the authorities uncovered some international criminal operation. She believes the three frightening women were connected to those criminals. She believes Charlie is merely another potential target. Charlie allows her to believe all of it, because the illusion itself is the lesson. And third, Elaine still has not truly changed. She has suffered. There is a difference. Suffering can change circumstances without changing character. Elaine leaves detention terrified, but still vindictive, still entitled, still blaming other people, still obsessed with status, still keeping a mental list of everyone she intends to punish. And perhaps most importantly, still unable to control her mouth. She literally turns a successful release into a broken leg because she cannot resist humiliating people she believes she has defeated. Stories by Anna. Life lesson. There is a powerful lesson hiding inside Elaine's final minutes in that detention center. When God opens a door out of trouble, don't let pride make you turn around and start another fight. There are moments when winning does not require another speech. Sometimes winning means walking away. Elaine had freedom in front of her. Instead of walking toward it, she kept looking backward. And every time she looked backward, she found another person to insult. That is how an open door became another beating. That is how freedom became a hospital visit. And that is how victory almost became another defeat. Not every battle deserves your final word. Sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is how you protect the blessing you just received. Final thoughts. Episodes 311 through 315 move several pieces into place. Warnia is moving emotionally closer to Charlie. Darius now understands that Charlie is far more significant than he originally realized. Isaac continues proving just how efficiently he can execute Charlie's instructions. Elaine is finally out of detention, but she is returning home injured, furious, and carrying enough resentment for several future confrontations. Mrs. Wilson believes Elaine has destroyed her dream of living in Thompson. Bridget now despises Elaine even more than before. Claire is rushing to the hospital believing her mother was simply caught in a pyramid scheme. Jacob is somewhere enjoying himself with his old classmates. And Charlie? Charlie knows considerably more than everybody else. And as usual, he isn't saying a word. That may be the most important detail of all. Because whenever everyone around Charlie thinks they understand what is happening, there is usually another layer of the story that only Charlie Wade can see. This has been Stories by Anna, Faith, Hope, and Life Lessons. Tell me in the comments, did Elaine deserve the lesson Charlie arranged for her, or did things go much too far once the other inmates became involved? And one more question. Did you notice how quickly Darius realized that Warnia's feelings for Charlie were much deeper than simple gratitude? I want to hear what you think. Please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. And until our next Born to Rule review, remember, sometimes the smartest thing you can do after winning a battle is walk away before your pride starts another one. Stories by Anna.